So we will start our exchange about which are the key success factors in order to develop long-term mobility. And we will start with a video, with a witness from the company.
Hi everyone, my name is Marine Felix and I'm a training manager into the Lactalis group. The group Lactalis is a daily product company based everywhere in the world, and maybe you know us by our mainly brand, which is President, Galbani and Parmalat. Next project is to open a training center for the apprenticeship here in Laval. Into the Lactalis group, the apprenticeship play a key role, obviously, into our way to build a sustainable knowledge management. Moving is a way to discover other cultures, our management style, and so on. And so, developing your career, you get this opportunity to live a professional life abroad. The added value in a short-term view is, first of all, for the trainee, because they discover another culture, they discover another language, as we said earlier, exposed to new management style, etc., and so on. And then, for worldwide company like us, it's key to prepare our managers to work in an international environment. So when those apprentices came back into the plants, they exchange with their managers, they share best practices, and then in a more long-term view, they bring a real performances to the plant. First of all, definitely to simplify the process. If you sign a contract, you get an help to cover the accommodation cost, the traveling cost, which can be a curb when you want to get a long-term mobility also. We are used to apprenticeship here in France, but when it comes to go abroad, everyone is completely okay that going abroad is very good, is making you much more grown, etc. But when it comes to do it, everyone stops because it's very complicated to get it. It appears that we really need a place to meet, a place or anywhere that all the parts could share their needs. I mean the gradations for the applicants, I mean the vacancies for the companies, I mean also the training path for the training center. From my point of view, I've got 3 words in mind, which are ambition, commitment, and simplicity. And not just because this is the group Lactalis values, but just because in that kind of projects, if the key is developing long-term mobility everywhere in Europe and maybe in the world tomorrow, you really have to have in mind that 3 words to make it very easy for everyone.
Thank you. Now that we've heard from a more business-centric perspective, and I'm quite glad we did, let me present to you the 3 main speakers of today's last idea Crossroads, namely Roxana Flavia Dam. She's a European project officer at EUC Sud, a Danish training center. René Barbeco, Director of International Partnership at Opco Atlas, which is a French skills operator in the financial and advising sector. And finally, Louise Chancelier, General Director of the French branch of ESN, Erasmus Student Network. Thank you so much again for being here to talk about incentives to European mobility. But before I give you the floor, I would like to kick things off with a quick survey on Slido. Now, I hope you're familiar with it now. Just a reminder, the code is 161721. 16, 17, 21. I forgot my French there. And I would like you to type in the first words that come to mind when you think about incentives to European mobility.
It's okay.
We've heard some from our friends in Lactalis, but maybe you can type in some more, and it will appear in the word cloud.
So take your time to type your keywords But if you want to say also, you can also to say some keywords to us live.
Also, Paula, I just realized I did not introduce myself. I'm Claire Vikernes. I'm from the Jacques Delors Institute. I'm a researcher there. Jacques Delors Institute is also a partner of this event, so I'm quite happy to be here today to moderate the time. I should have begun with this, sorry. Yeah. Financial support, as you can see, has been typed in quite a lot. Simplicity of the processes. We've heard from Lactalis as well. Oh, can I? Okay, sorry.
I did it.
Information, testimonials. I think that would be quite interesting for the Erasmus student network here, and I'm sure we will tackle this as well. New skills, mentoring. Louise, I propose you remember those as well. Empowerment as well, funding, thanks, recognition. Okay, I think we have a good overview actually of the topic here with many of the incentives we wanted to talk to you about. So unless there are new ones that pop up, I think I can give the floor to our panelists here today. Paula, yes. So I will. So maybe with these results in mind, you've had the chance to look at it. Roxana, you may begin. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk to you about the Danish take on long-term mobilities. And in Denmark, we have a program which is called Work Placement Abroad Program. It's very straightforward. It's a program that has been implemented in Denmark in 1992. That's when it started, and then it took a bigger significance as years went by. This program allows apprentices to spend at least 1 month excluding travel days, and up to their whole apprenticeship in a private or public company abroad, anywhere in the world. So it's not restricted to the European space, but it's anywhere in the world where there are not conflicts, of course. And what is very important is that this part of the apprenticeship, abroad, will be recognized as part of the studies of the apprentice in Denmark. And the general goals in 1992 that have been fixed there with this program was internationalization of the vet education and to help companies respond to global competition. How is it possible? The program is made possible by the Danish Employers Reimbursement Fund, and that is the translation into English, but actually the translation word by word of the program in Danish is actually the employer's contribution to education. It is a fund that all employers contribute to in function of the number of their employees, whether they are public or private companies, whether they have apprentices or not. And the money is used on a current basis to refund the employers the salary that the apprentices get when they are in school. Because in Denmark, you have this little image here. In Denmark, like in many other European countries, we have a dual vocational education. We have actually a basic course and then a main course, and the main course is actually dual. And this program is destined for apprentices who are in their main course. So the reimbursement fund reimburses the salaries of the apprentices while they're in school. And that's where the most of the money goes to, and a small part of the money is used to finance the work placement abroad program, and it pays the expenses related to travel expenses or to compensate negative salary differences between the receiving country and Denmark, if there are any. Concretely, there are two pillars in this program. There's an administrative pillar, and there's a financial pillar, the funding pillar. So on the administration part, the whole starting point is an agreement, a three-part agreement between schools, the Danish employer, the Danish student, and the company abroad. In this agreement, there will be stated very clearly the number of working hours, the location, the insurance conditions, and the salary level, and the tasks. We have to keep in mind that the Danish employer is always responsible for ensuring that the apprentice will reach the learning outcomes that are required in Denmark for the respective trade. And the Danish employer is also responsible that the apprentice gets the salary at the level corresponding to a Danish salary for the apprentice. And that's why the money always goes to the company. So that's for the administrative part. And that is how, and very, very important, in the agreement between the two companies and the student, you will have a list of tasks that the student have to get to, the apprentice has to get to do in order to reach the learning outcomes that are required by the Danish curriculum. That's how we facilitate the recognition of the practical part within the Danish curriculum. And then there's this financial pillar that is facilitated by the reimbursement program. And the Danish employer gets refunded the main part of the direct costs related to outposting an apprentice. It will have, so it will cover salary differences if the salary abroad is less than the salary in Denmark, initial and final travel expenses related to school periods, because if the apprentice goes for a longer time and they have to come back for the school periods, it will be refunded by this reimbursement fund. It covers also travel expenses for holidays, for stays that are longer than 3 months, usually Easter or Christmas holidays. For longer outpostings, it also covers relocation expenses, and 50% of the expenses related to preparation visits or to interviews if the apprentice has to go abroad and make an interview with the company. So that was the Danish take on long-term mobilities.
Thank you, Roxana. I think. Sorry. I think there will be probably many questions from the French members of the audience later on, maybe to compare the French and the Danish systems, probably many similarities, but also many differences and perhaps best practices. So thank you again, and we'll come back to you later for more details. René Barbeco, sorry, I'll give you the floor now. That's okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. Maybe the presentation is ready. Thanks. So the OCO Atlas is a skill operator. A few words about skill operator in France. Atlas is one of the 11 national skill operators, OPCO, established by the latest law on vocational training. Skill operators are organized into specific professional sectors, and our missions are mostly assist companies in defining the training needs, finance the training plans of companies, especially with fewer than 50 employees. It's the main target of the law, actually. And to support the recruitment of co-op students and finance the apprenticeship and professional development contracts. We inform about vocational training and the schemes available to employees, companies, job seekers, and candidates for co-op placement programs. And we support professional sectors in their employment, training projects or policy. The main part of our activity is concentrated on apprenticeship, and we finance 70,000 apprentice contracts, which is quite important. And we have registered an increase of 20% between 2019 and 2020. So it proves that the companies are very active on the field of recruitment and apprenticeship. Most of the programs are on high-level programs. It's due to the professions we cover. I'm going to describe our field. So we are skill operator for the financial and consulting sectors. 15 professional sectors are covered, referring to the branch collective agreements. And the big families of activities are insurance, banking, consulting, accounting expertise, engineering sector, and digital sector. That make overall more than 108,000 companies and 1.8 million employees. We identify several factors for developing apprenticeship and mobility. The market demand for value-added services in our branches, the recruitment needs at high levels of expertise, international extent of companies, advanced technical and language skills expected by companies. Experience abroad is an asset often required by companies. And many professional certifications have a mandatory time abroad included. And the training centers are obliged to set a mobility program. In France, we have a law which provides a framework to secure and develop European or international mobility for co-op students. The third thing is a special agreement which must be signed by the stakeholders, students, but companies and training centers. Two situations are defined by the law. When mobility schemes are shorter than 4 weeks, the employment contract can be neither terminated nor suspended. So it's security for the student. And the co-op student is made available on a temporary basis by the French company. This other case is the mobility scheme longer than 4 weeks, which requires the student's contract to be put on hold with the company. So in practice, skill operators can finance part of the cost generated by international mobility programs. And to do so, the employer or the training center must send a draft mobility agreement to their OPCO, which is a request to cover the costs of the apprentices' international mobility. And the agreement may be formalized between the apprentice, the employer in France, the employer abroad, the training center in France, and if in that case, the training center abroad. What is our policy on mobility? First, it's to optimize the possibilities provided by the law, considering the importance of apprenticeship for companies in our branches. The commitment of our professional branch representatives as social partners is very important because they are completely involved in the mechanism and the desire to push as much as is possible the possibilities of the scheme. An allocation of additional resources to finance mobility programs, and the readiness to give traction to the scheme with this additional funding. So the financial support provided by ITLAS is based on a lump sum of 500 euros, covering the cost incurred by the training center for the mobility coach time and action to help the student to success in the mobility program. And the coverage of costs incurred by the apprentice For example, loss of salary or social protection. With the two situations we have just seen, for shorter mobility duration, less than 4 weeks, it's 1,800 euros, which will be transferred to the training center and after to the student, and an amount of 2,500 euros if the company puts the contract on hold when the mobility program is over 4 weeks. That's the main scheme that we develop at Atlas to support mobility programs for the students in apprenticeship.
Thank you very much, René, for clarifying the role of UPCO, of skills operator, and especially for presenting best practices from UPCO Atlas. And I think we really saw the willingness to push for mobility and to push for support for mobility there. So thank you. We'll come back to you later as well. But let me give the floor now to our last speaker of the day, actually, Louise Chancelier.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Louise Chancelier, the director of Erasmus Student Network France, and I'm here to talk about the young people point of view and perspective. And I'm adding the extra challenge of already using the keywords I've seen on Slido, which are empowerment, testimonials, mentoring, and I've read accompaniment, so I guess it's support. Let's go. We've talked earlier about different stages of mobility before, during, and after. And we like to see the mobility as a pathway where the young person and the apprentice is supported, first keyword, during the whole process. The first one is the information process, where he can find, or she can find, the programs available, the opportunities, and all the added information with the learning centers, the companies, and so on. Then, of course, when the destination and the program are chosen, how to prepare with the administrative procedures, etc. Then, in the country, the welcoming part is very important, and I think I've heard earlier some information about that. At ESN, we're also very keen to talk about engagement. It's very important to have classes or to have a working experience and to discover a new culture, but it's even better, if possible, of course, it's not mandatory, to engage with the society, with the local culture and the local population as a way to improve the feeling of citizenship and European citizenship feeling. And of course, when you go back to your mobility, when you come back to your country, this is a huge challenge in how the young person highlight the skill he or she acquired. We've talked a lot about how these skills are recognized, but there is a challenge for the young person to promote what they've seen, what they've done to their personal and professional development. We've talked already a lot about the barriers, so I'm not going to full details in this one, but we can all agree that the problem is that the young people, it's not that they doesn't want to go, it's that they are afraid of it most of the time because of different reasons. The first one is because it's hard for them to access the good information regarding their wishes. And of course, we also have the administrative, financial barriers, the language barriers we have addressed a little bit, and the psychological barriers and self-censorship, of course. So how to overcome this fear? And this is where ESN, along with other stakeholders, is involved. Erasmus Student Network is a network of student associations, 37 in France, which gather more than 1,000 volunteers, with the job of welcoming and supporting international students, including apprentices, and also raise awareness about international mobility programs among the young people, the French young peoples. This is also very important to know that we are part of the international network, 40 countries, more than 500 associations all over Europe and the higher education area. So basically, as we heard in one of the testimonials, the young person said that she was alone. With ESN, hopefully you're not alone. And this is where the peer-to-peer solidarity is very important, so that the young person, the apprentice, when he comes to a new country and is a little bit lost, then he can reach to ESN volunteers and students, so he can get in touch with few people and have some orientation in the local culture. About the raising awareness activities, we are trying to centralize all the information available and to redirect the young person to the right stakeholders and mobility experts. So this is, for example, the OFAGE, or this is Europe Mobility, depending on the program, depending on the profile of the young person. And this is available on the website Ticket pour le Monde, Ticket for the World. And we are also very attached to meeting all the young people and to intervene in schools, in professional high schools or in formation centers with international students, so that the young person can also get in touch with with another culture and to start asking questions. Whereas the volunteers, the French volunteers, can also share their experience as going abroad, because most of our volunteers engage themselves after their experience abroad. And this is usually the biggest project that we are leading. That is the buddy system, which is labeled best practice by the National French Erasmus Plus Agency. Thank you very much for that. That is a matching platform, yet another one, but it's a very good method for international and local students to meet and support each other. From the local students and apprentices' perspective, this is also very interesting that they can meet some international people at home. So it's also a confidence boost for them, that before going they can say, okay, I'm able to speak to this person, this person has answered some of questions and raised some curiosity, so let's go. In France, we have more than 82,000 international and local students using the buddy system, and it's also implemented in other countries in Europe. And it represents higher education institutions as well. And one of the next steps could be to add the learning and the formation centers with the specific needs also that they have, especially with the companies. And this is where also all the cooperation with all of them, all of us, is very important. And I think I am done. And if you have any question, you can reach me to my email.
Thank you very much, Louise. I would like to thank you especially because I think in this kind of discussions we really need to get the learners and the students and the organizations that represent them, their point of view. So, so thank you very much for this. Unfortunately, I will not be able to make you move or dance as we probably almost did earlier, but I would like to make you vote. And this time we will launch a second survey on Slido. And the question is the following. Which are, according to you, the 3 most effective levers to be used to promote mobility across all the different stakeholders? So we have 7 possible answers, propositions, and I think you can vote for 3 of them maximum. So we have financial support to companies. We've heard about that a little bit. Financial support to learners, a specific capacity building for staff, working specifically on long-term mobility within the VET institutions. We also have information campaigns addressed not only to the companies, but also to the learners and their families. Simplification of the processes, both for VET providers and for companies. Language support, and finally, peer-to-peer solidarity. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing which ones are the most common, frequently answered answers. So for now, it's simplifying processes. I think we've heard a lot about this today already. Financial support to companies and learners neck to neck. Okay, for now to learners. I will just wait 2 seconds so it doesn't change so much. Okay, so I think the clear winners here are simplifying processes, financial support both to companies and learners neck to neck, and information. So maybe we can keep it here just to have them in mind. But then I would like to talk then about financial support to companies and to learners. And since in your presentation it was quite clear, Roxana, that in the Danish system, companies get refunded when they send out apprentices abroad from a national fund.
Yeah, that is correct. Actually, companies get refunded the salary of the apprentices while the apprentices are in school, and then they get they do not get refunded when they send their apprentices abroad, but they do not have financial loss in that sense, and the money always goes to the company, and it's the company who still has that apprentice, even though that apprentice is outposted to another country in another company.
And maybe can you tell us the benefits of this system quickly? Don't worry.
Yes, well, we constantly try to communicate the benefits of the system because even though we have the system and we have tried to do it as smooth as possible, there's still a lot of work to be done in convincing the companies to let their students go, but in any case, they do not have financial loss when they send their students abroad, and they still have a very, very important word to say in the tasks and the learning outcomes that the student has to come home with. Actually, when the two companies speak together, they will assess which kind of skills the apprentice can get from abroad, and then if they are not corresponding 100% to the Danish curriculum, the Danish company will compensate in the rest of the apprenticeship. And that is made possible because we're talking about also simplifying the process. That is made possible by the fact that in Denmark, we do not have intermediary diplomas. So an apprenticeship, it is a 4-year curriculum, and you have to do it, and you cannot stop midways because then you'll not get your diploma. So actually, when the apprentice goes abroad for 3 or 6 months or 1 month, there's still room, there's still time to adjust the skills that are required and the learning outcomes that are required by the Danish curriculum. So there's still time to adjust, and maybe the apprentice has also gotten some skills that were not in the Danish curriculum, which is always a good thing.
Thank you. So it's very much a seamless process here for both as much as we can say that, for the learners and for the companies and the vet providers. René, in your case, you also mentioned financial support for the training centers, for the mobility coaches, but also for the learners. Maybe you can also present to us the benefits of this system, and if you also want to comment on the simplification of the processes, feel free to do it because they're very much up there in the results. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's a bit different in France then. Through our role as a skill operator, we finance the training center. So the money goes from the skill operator to the training center. One part is kept by the training center because it's for covering the mobility coach action. And for the students, the training center will transfer the money to the young people. It's quite simple because the training center must invoice Atlas, skill operator, as soon as it's possible, after signing the special agreement we mentioned earlier on. And that's all. We don't ask for many administrative documents to simplify and to make it quickly in order that the young student can afford to move and to be sure that he will have enough resources to to remain in time for the period of duration. I want to mention that what we give and with these two amounts of 1,800 euros or 2,500, it's a complement for other grants provided by Erasmus or regional councils. And we noticed that it was not sufficient. So the social partners have decided to complete this amount. And we'll see if it's enough in the time, because it's quite recent. These possibilities are quite new. So I think in this year we'll evaluate what's the benefit of this scheme, and to check if the students have been secured enough in the mobility program.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I would be very interested to see the results, and maybe it's food for thought as well for the other skills operator in France. So maybe there are some in the room, I don't know. But thank you, food for thought, absolutely. It didn't really pop up very high in the answers on the screen, but then in the word cloud we had a lot about sharing of experience and testimonials. So Louise, I think I would like you to talk a bit more about the benefits of peer-to-peer solidarity, sharing of experience, and alumni networks, and so on.
Well, success stories are probably the keys to motivate and create the desire among the young people and the apprentices to go abroad. And there are so many ways to do it. We've seen through videos, we've seen through social networks, written testimonials, detailed information also given about the countries, the cost of living in this country, the social life there, how to find housing, etc., etc. And there is also direct interventions, such as in the schools, also in the big events, such as the orientation salon, or Erasmus days, who are coming soon, or European days, etc., etc. And showing the different profiles, and also that there is no self-censorship about the difficulties, and the way they overcome these difficulties is very important, because these are the information that the young people want. They are afraid, they have so many questions, and they're sometimes thinking, I'm not going to make it. And so showing them people who done it, who've made it, is very, very motivating, and create the desire and boost the confidence.
Thank you very much. I think we've actually covered most of the incentives here. So maybe I would like to come back to you for maybe if you have a last message, a last thing you would like to comment on, maybe a dream, a hope. I get inspired from Martin here. So please, Roxana, and I will just and René, and then Louise again, and then we can maybe go to the questions if you have any.
Even though we have this this program which facilitates, and it's quite, from our point of view, it's quite smooth, but it is a program based on one-to-one agreement, like Ms. Taidas said, that's the way it functions. And of course it is, sometimes it's difficult to find the companies. So we have the structure in place, but the companies do need to be persuaded that it's good for them, and sometimes it's difficult to explain the benefits of the soft skills, that when they get back their apprentice, it might be a whole different person, and for sure for the better. But it is still difficult to convince the companies. What we try to do, and so we're going small steps, because we know that sometimes less is more. We do start with short-term mobilities, where when we do the information sessions, we invite not only the students but also the companies, in order to present the program of the mobilities outside, so that they can see that there is added value actually in the mobility. And it's not only, of course, there's a social and fun part in it, and but it also they also we also try to show the professional part of the mobility so that it's very clear to the companies. And it's often an eye-opener to the companies because, yeah, the companies are also just, they have also been sometime maybe apprentices who maybe did not have the courage to go on a mobility. So we do try to work on all levels and communicate. Communication is very important.
Communication is key, and maybe you agree, Renee, as well. I will leave you to your last message. If you have any last comments.
Yes, information is a key word. I think visibility on funding possibilities and different conditions for developing mobility is very important. I would like to mention that we organize a special webinar on the 24th September next week, organized by Atlas, but in partnership with Erasmus Plus and Europe Mobility and DGFP, the General Delegation for Employment and Educational Training, Vocational Training, sorry. So you're invited to join us on this date. It's simple. You can check our website, OPCO Atlas, and you can subscribe and attend to the event. I would like to mention as well that maybe more flexibility for the period when the student is made available. Some companies have noticed that it was quite short, and we had an appeal for that. Maybe it could evolve there towards maybe a longer period. So why not to think about that? That's all for me.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much. Louise, any last comments? Sorry.
Well, I've reread the keywords and I forgot one, that is empowerment. And of course, there's a big challenge in building capacities of companies, of formation centers, and of students. And following all this process and making it simple as much as possible for everyone is also a way to empower them and to create new opportunities for all of them and building professional capacities. And that's my last word.
Well, thank you so much. Maybe I will try to summarize a little bit the discussion that we just had today, and then we can move on to the questions since we have a little bit of time. So I think what's great is that what I really draw from the discussions is that we have best practices from different stakeholders, whether it is adopting an integrated approach in Denmark with the fact that mobility is fully part of the apprentice training curriculum, whether it is adopting coherent approach in France, whereby the specificities of the sectors are really taken into account and where the ambitions actually are really matched by the support that you provide, or whether it is adopting a holistic approach with the Erasmus network, where support to mobility is not only done before, but also during and after. And lastly, I would also like to draw attention to the word information and communication, which have really been key in our discussions today. It's not only at the heart of today's event, I think, but also it's probably key to make sure that Erasmus, c'est aussi pour les apprentis. So that was my conclusion. And now we will move on to the question from the audience, if you have any. I don't see any hands raising yet. Oh, yes, over there. Yes, thank you so much.
Hi, it's not a question, it's really an observation about the OPCO, in that the different OPCOs all have different policies, and if I take the example of the chemical industry and plastics industry, it's 800 euros. That's all. And so for an apprentice, 800 euros is not a lot to compensate their loss of salary. And also the OPCO requests that the training center advances the money and gets reimbursed. So the situation is extremely complex for the training centers concerned with this particular OPCO.
René, do you want to comment on that? I think Okay. I think it was about the fact that financial support was not sufficient for the learner, and also that the training center had to advance the money, which also was inconvenience. So I don't know if it was the same OPCO, probably not. But maybe, do you want to comment on that? Is it? But it's not OPCO Atlas. It's another. It's another one.
It's another one. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I think skill operators are not completely experienced on all the mechanism. They're quite advanced now on processing contracts and financing. But for mobility, Atlas has a special decision that I explained earlier on. It's not the case of the other OPCO. So maybe will be an example to the other, and but it's the decision of social partners in the different branches and skill operators to go till we are today to propose an additional funding, but. Maybe this audience today, this event today, will give some ideas to the other. Yeah. Thanks.
And if I may, actually, the fact is we have 11 OPCO in France and 11 different ways of financing. I mean, the principle is that the mobility costs are financed, but then in a different manner, with a lump sum or with an extra cost for extra financement for students, for apprentices. So I guess it's one of the core issue, and Europe mobility, maybe Jean could say something, but we actually hope that we will have soon an harmonization of the practices, if not of the financement, because it's decided by every branch, but at least of the process.
It's again a question to Sir Barreco. Not to repeat the same that all skill operators, that they have different politics on supporting the apprentices mobility, but do you have an idea, a figure of how many apprentices were able to go abroad since it exists this agreement of short or long-term mobility?
I understand that you want to know how we can help to...
No, to have an idea, because we also, I'm speaking on behalf of Nancy Opera House Training Center. So we have a different skill operator, and as far as I know, there is no any support for mobility for now. So I know it's new, and we find different solutions, and there is also the cross-border area that the region, Grand Est region, really helps on behalf of that. But just to have an idea on how many apprentices in your sector, they do go abroad, and they do, how many demands you have on...
So how many?
Combien d'apprentis, en fait, combien de demandes d'apprentis vous avez?
Ouais. We have, for now, we have a few hundreds of requests, but we are cautious because training centers or employers just tick the box on the formula, and so we're not sure if the projects will be realized. So we have, I think, more than 70 agreements that we have received, which means that the projects are quite real, but we wait for the invoices. The training centers must send their documents and the invoices to prove that there's a mobility project going on.
It's more a remark in general, But as far as we are concerned, a lot of our apprentices, they work,
Sorry.
A lot of our apprentices, they work in public sector. So in public sector, the financing works really different on how we can get some money to support mobility. So it goes in the same discussions that we have today, and just to share experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barbeco, you know the number of youngsters moving outside in mobility. Have you an assessment of the number of youngsters coming from outside to the employers depending from Atlas? Because the mobility needs reciprocity. Mm-hmm. Do you assess the number of youngsters coming from other countries in the bank, in the insurance companies, depending from Atlas?
We don't have enough information about that, about the company's practices. I couldn't answer to that precisely because it will mean that we should inquire about that and ask the companies what are your activity in welcoming other students from other countries. We don't have the data for that, but it's a good question, and I think we must mature our practice and the link with companies to identify what their policy consists about in France, but you said reciprocity. Sorry, reciprocity. It's very important, yes, to follow that. Yes.
Pardon? Sorry.
In Denmark, how many youngsters from other countries are coming in Denmark in mobility? Do you know that?
There are not very many because of the barrier, of the language barrier, and also Denmark is maybe the least attractive of the Scandinavian countries. But we do have, a lot of students, for example, from abroad. Well, we have cooks that come a lot, for example, so chefs, yes. But I do not have the numbers. I do know that with the program that I talked about today, for a country of 6 million inhabitants, we have around 1,500 students going abroad, but in the whole world. And the program is, we have to also specify, the program is open not only for the vocational schools, but also, for example, for agricultural schools, schools preparing people in the health sector and the social sector. So it's a generic number.
Thank you. Maybe Paola. I think, except if we have another question, a last question, before we conclude this day, I think perhaps we can wrap this up, and if so, I will let you do it.
I will wrap up.
If you want to wrap up.
I want to, especially because a cocktail is waiting for us, so I want to wrap up very much. But in any case, seriously speaking, I guess this third ideas crossroad was quite interesting because we could. Crossroad is a place where ideas meet. So in this crossroad, we saw the financial part, which is quite important. Financial part to companies, financial part to training center for Atlas, and everything that could be done in the framework of peer-to-peer and solidarity between students, in the case of Erasmus Student Network. But we invited Louise because we think that that system could be a system that we can apply also for apprentices. So I would like to thank you all, Claire, René, Louise, and Roxane, and see you tomorrow morning. We start tomorrow morning with a round table with companies, which will exchange about why they are engaged in long-term mobility or why they are not engaged in long-term mobility, and then the conclusion and the launch of the manifest. In any case, I would like to thank you very much.